Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today we're taking a look at another hunter build. We've done a lot of these recently, but they're all really good and really fun and are very effective in what we can currently play within Destiny 2, as well as what we will be playing this June with the big summer update. But as for what we're going to be covering today, we'll be using a build that focuses on a pretty underrated exotic with incredible ad clear and damage output, some okay boss damage, and one of the most satisfying and enjoyable gameplay loops that I've ever seen. But before we dive into the build, if you're a returning viewer, you likely know the drill. Go ahead, scroll down, and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. I do my best to put out Destiny 2 content, whether it's builds, guides, whatever on the franchise, and it's probably a good idea if you made sure you were subscribed. Also, I can't reach my goal of 50,000 subscribers without you actually doing that. I do also stream 3 to 4 times a week on Twitch, and I have a Discord that I'm trying to grow to about 1,000. There's 200 of us right now, so you should click those links all down in the description. Also, while on the topic of links in the description, there is a dim link down there, that way you can grab this build easily, and alongside it there are timestamps of this video, making your viewing experience hopefully better. But now, diving into the build itself, starting with our exotic armor piece, we are using Mask of Fealty. This exotic helmet is all about stasis shurikens. So reading the description of this exotic, it says, Withering Blade hits and bounces create a small stasis crystal and refund a portion of melee energy. Using Withering Blade to shatter crystals or frozen targets releases a spread of Withering Blades. Now, the first thing we need to look at is our base stasis shurikens. This ranged melee ability will bounce around enemies with aggressive tracking, and it's going to apply a moderate amount of slow stacks on hit. Enough so that if we throw 2 shurikens at a single enemy, it's going to freeze them. Now, the damage this ability does really isn't the main focus of using it, but it isn't bad. We're mainly here for the crowd control and wide spread of damage, either from the shurikens themselves or from the shatter damage that destroying frozen things gives us. But now, to take a look at how Mask of Fealty alters this ability, the first thing we can see is that it spawns stasis crystals wherever the shurikens impact, and if thrown at an enemy, they will now freeze from 1 single shuriken rather than needing 2, as that crystal spawns at the enemy's feet. We can also use that new stasis crystal to deal a lot more damage than just shattering the enemy by itself. As for the second part of this exotic, we have some baked in ability regeneration. Whenever our shurikens bounce or shatter anything, we will get some melee ability back. And given that 1 shuriken will now freeze targets, the second shuriken can be used to shatter that enemy, which will regen a large chunk of our next shuriken. And then the last bit of this exotic isn't something that you're going to see a ton of, to be honest, and that is when shattering crystals with our shurikens, it will release a fan of 3 extra shurikens out of that crystal, which themselves also spawn crystals. Mainly though, we want this exotic because it increases our shuriken's effectiveness by allowing them to instantly freeze, and they put stasis crystals all over the place, which increases our ad clear by quite a bit. And the goal of today's build is being able to spam the hell out of this ability so that our ad clear is really good and our crowd control, and because the ability is just super fun to use. With that said though, before getting into the subclass setup, this is where I want to talk about weapons, and I'm right here showing you nothing because you don't have to use anything. Like all my builds, or most of my builds, there isn't 1 specific weapon or 2 weapons that you have to use, although maybe I should get a bit more gimmicky, but I tend to just like my builds to be able to change depending on whatever activity you're playing. You need to take it to a raid or a GM or whatever. If you got specific champions you got to deal with, your weapons can handle that stuff. And the build itself works all on its own, no matter what you actually decide to run. The dim link does have my current selection of weapons, which is just my go-to combo of a rocket pulse plus a rocket sidearm and an eager edge sword. But feel free to replace those if you take this build for yourself. Now moving into our subclass, we are going to be on prismatic so we can make use of the transcendence ability. Since we want to spam our melee, we might as well leverage the ability that gives us infinite melees for a duration. So now moving left to right, our super of choice can be whatever, but I use Golden Gun because it does good boss damage, and we can leverage this solar super to give ourselves pretty constant restoration. More on that when we talk fragments. Our class ability is going to be Gambler's Dodge so that we can refund our shurikens with it. Our melee of choice should probably be Withering Blade so that this build actually works. Our grenade can be whatever, but the optimal choice, in my opinion, is Grapple, does high damage, and it's really good movement. But now onto our aspects. The first that we're going to be using is Stylish Executioner. This aspect says that whenever we defeat a debuffed enemy, we will go invisible. We also get true sight to see enemies through walls and some form of increased melee damage, but all that stuff is effectively negligible, to be honest. We simply use this aspect for infinite and automatic invisibility. In game, I'd like to show off all the current sources of invisibility. Right now, our grapple grenade will make us invis, our melee will make us invis, and our weapons will do it too if they have a perk like incandescent or chill clip. And then our class ability will also do it, and that's because we are using Ascension. This aspect says that we can air move to consume our dodge and release a burst of electricity around us that jolts enemies and amplifies allies. In game, we can look at this ability in action. We do our upward twirl, jolt enemies, kill them if they're fodder or low health, and then go invisible thanks to Stylish Executioner. And this ability helps Transcendence building too, as it counts as light damage. But I am particularly fond of the benefits that Amplified gives us. First off, we get 15% stacking damage resist, and enemies are just straight up less accurate against us. This ability helps offensively and defensively, making it a no-brainer pick for this build. Now, to finish our subclass, we have our Fragments. First is Facet of Hope, which will reduce our class ability cooldown whenever we have any type of elemental buff, and Amplified counts there, so that's a self-sustaining loop. Next is Facet of Purpose, which will give us some super dependent survivability. In the case of this build and using Golden Gun, that is Restoration, which is just constant health regen whenever we pick up an orb that is not interrupted by damage. Next is Facet of Protection, which will give us damage resist when near 3 enemies, which is like all of the time, so this just makes us flat out tankier. And then lastly, we use Facet of Dawn, which will make us radiant whenever our melees hit anything, which, considering that this is a melee focused build, we are like always radiant, meaning our weapons deal more damage and we can pierce barriers. Now, coming out of our subclass, the next thing to talk about is our armor, and also the fact that you're still not subscribed. You should fix that. But as for the armor itself goes, let's first take a look at stats. With that on screen now, our major focus is on the melee stat. Up to 100, it's going to decrease our melee cooldown, and then past 100, it will increase its damage. Our next stat will usually end up being super, just because of how armor archetypes work, and this is also a good stat to have around 100 for the fastest possible cooldown. And then our third stat goes to class. We want this around at least 70 so that we have it on a very short cooldown. And then as far as armor set bonuses go, we don't really have anything specific today. Now, for the last bit about our armor, we have armor mods. Starting with our helmet, we run a siphon to make orbs from our weapons, then a special ammo finder to make more special ammo. Lastly, a hands-on so that our shuriken kills generate a chunk of super energy. Our arms have 2 heavy-handed so that our shurikens and grapple grenades spawn orbs on kills with a shorter cooldown between orbs. Then it also gets a focusing strike so that our melee damage refunds a small bit of class ability energy. Our chest piece gets resistances, just cater that to whatever activity. Our legs have a recuperation, an insulation, and an absolution, so that when we pick up any orb of power or multiple, we get a bit of health and a bit of all ability energy back with a bit more class ability. And then for our class item, we run a powerful attraction so that our class ability sucks up nearby orbs, a special finisher to top up our ammo when necessary, and then a proximity ward so that our finishers make us invincible during the animation. Now, our next topic is the artifact, and we have basically nothing within that affects this build too greatly. The best perk here is just Dielectric to benefit from all the jolting going on from Ascension, and yeah, that's about it. So moving on. To end this build, we have our gameplay loop. Since we start with all of our abilities, we can usually just grapple into a group of enemies and then look to send out 2 shurikens. The grapple does pretty good damage, and the shurikens will be bouncing around all sorts of things, spawning crystals, and I will then look to kill any frozen targets, usually by destroying the crystals that mask filthy spawns, or we can just shatter the enemies with Ascension. Ascension returns our 2 shurikens if done near enemies while making us amplified. We can then send out those 2 shurikens again, but usually after this first ability loop where we've clicked all of our buttons, we want to look at becoming transcendent. The damage from Ascension and the Jolt handles a lot of the light side of the meter, and then our grapple and shurikens will handle the dark side of the meter. Most often you will end up needing a bit of light, which is where our weapons come into play. Shoot those until your transcendence bar is full, and then pop it. Now it's just time to click buttons. Throw shurikens, ascend, throw more shurikens, grenade when you have it to increase your melee regen. The regen that we get from that, our class ability, and our exotic, means that you can absolutely just spam shurikens all the time. And that is the goal. Nearly every melee kill that we get drops an orb, which will give us lots of health regeneration upon pickup, And when we do have our super, after picking up all those orbs and getting all those kills, use it whenever, or save it for a boss if you know when it's coming soon. You're gonna get it back very quickly, especially if you're in an ad-dense environment. And I think that's it. You're just gonna loop that over and over, popping Transcendence as often as possible. That's the name of the game. Infinite abilities means infinite fun, I guess. But with that, thank you for getting this far into the video. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. I'm on the road to 50K, and I can't do it without your help. Remember, there's a dim link down in the description so you can grab this build easily. And if you want to support me, support the channel, a like, a comment, a subscription, joining the Discord, coming say on Twitch where I stream 3 to 4 times a week. That means a lot. Also hyping the video if you're on mobile and you know what that is. I think that helps those smaller channels. But if you want to support me, support the channel, but you can't think of a comment down below. Ice Ninja. And with that, as usual, I hope you're having a great day, and I hope to see you around.